welcome to the Community Pulse from PCS and MJG Studios, where we take the pulse of the community so that we can take action. I'm Kenny Brown. I will be hosting and facilitating today, and I'm pleased to be here with our friend, Byran Gooding. Byran, say hello to everybody in PCS land. That is
hello, and thank you, Kenny. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure. It's a pleasure. So let's get right to it.
All right.
Where and how the PCS Byran Gooding connection, give that to us. How does that look?
Yeah, well, let me just back up here. My name's Byran Gooding. I use he, him, they, them, anything, respectful pronouns. And I'm actually with the Public Health Institute of Metropolitan Chicago.
That is a long.
It is.
What do they call it?
It's a mouthful, so we say PHIMC for short.
PHIMC and PCS.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, so we say that for short. So we're one of a network of 45 public health institutes across the nation.
Wow.
And we really, our goal is to promote health equity in services across the state of Illinois. We have several different programs that we work with. One is the Regional Implementation Group, which guides HIV prevention services in suburban Cook County, and that's our connection with the Proactive, because we fund you folks to do prevention work in the region. We also work with a IDPH grant to do routine screening, so we work with agencies across Illinois to integrate HIV routine screening into your everyday health care. So routine screening means normalizing HIV testing, right, as part of that routine care. The CDC recommends that anybody ages 16 to 65 that's sexually active should have a HIV test at least once in their lifetime. So we really want to promote that. Another program that we have at PHIMC is our reentry program. And that's making sure that folks that are living with or at highest risk for HIV have a smooth transition out of the correction systems back into the communities, right? And hooking with those care and services that they need to remain healthy and to prevent recidivism.
So like awareness and advocacy is what I mean.
Definitely.
Wow.
I will say, back up one more step, I identify myself, I am an activist, advocate, activist, and sometimes agitator for people living with or at risk for HIV. I've been in the field for over 20 years, whether I was doing just plain advocacy work or working at community-based organizations, running programs, and now I serve with PHIMC. We serve as the Illinois Department of Public Health lead agent for suburban Cook County. So that's the region that we work in.
That is, and that's a region that needs help, right? Like that's definitely a region that
absolutely.
You look at some of the bigger metropolitan areas, and you look at our small townships out here in the Southland, and I think sometimes the focus is not on us. So thank you all for putting a magnifying glass on South Suburban Cook County for sure. Health equity, right? What made you want to get into health equity? Like when you're a kid and you're in school and you're like, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? I said a fireman. Obviously, I'm not a fireman. I also said a professional wrestler. Don't judge me, but I was going to be a professional wrestler with something about jumping from the top rope. I'm scared of heights.
Okay.
But even what I'm doing now, there was a road and a path that took me there. What was the path that took you on a journey of health equity?
Well, I think that journey through me came through public health, right? I am a person of lived experience. HIV has been living with me on my terms for about 27 years now.
I love the frame of that.
Yes,
I love the
right?
frame of that. On my terms.
I make the rules here, and when I was growing up, I didn't think this is where I'd be. I've had a lot of life experiences that have brought me here. My diagnosis with HIV. I'm also a person with lived experience around substance use, right? And then when I was first diagnosed with HIV, at that point, I was immediately locked out. This was over 27 years ago, so I was immediately locked out of the healthcare system, right? Because remember pre-existing conditions, right?
It was, absolutely.
Yeah, so at that point, I was immediately locked out of the healthcare system. So I had to kind of fend for myself, seek out different programs in order to get the health care I want. Because I remember when I walked out of that office, doctor's office that day with that diagnosis, I was living downtown and on the north side, and I got my diagnosis at the Chicago Department of Public Health there on Clark Street, across from what used to be the Century Mall. I don't know if anybody remembers the Century Mall.
I do, and I've dated myself now. Wow.
So, I walked out of that appointment. They didn't really give me any resources or referrals. And I remember walking out the door and standing there in the street and thinking, I didn't think, oh my God, I'm going to die. I thought, oh my God, I want to live, right?
Wow.
Because at that time, the medications that people are taking now, or we've got even better medications, were just coming out. So people were really dying still when I got my
I remember some of the pandemonium around that when I won't say how old I was, 27 years old, but I was old enough to have a memory and have friends. But no, I remember a friend of mine was diagnosed, and there was just like this big dark cloud that was hanging over,
Mm-hmm.
and there was so much judgment, so much ridicule. And it wasn't really looked at as a health condition. It was looked at as judgment for a behavior.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how you contract it, it was looked at as some type of judgment. And I couldn't imagine being the age and stage that he was, having to deal with that mentally and what that did to him. I saw him disintegrate. Then you saw the surges of happiness. So to hear you say you received this diagnosis and didn't have that, I hope somebody in PCS land is inspired by that. Any health condition, don't get something or feel like you have something and say, oh, I'm going to die.
I want to live. I want to live.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. And and then, I think it's just a progression towards equity. As I got more into the field of public health and working with HIV and really seeing those disparities out there, right? That people receiving various levels of health care depending on who you are, where you live, your zip code, right, can determine your health outcomes. So really, and then people always talk about equality. Well, equality isn't where it's at. It's equity is where it's at, because we can give everybody the same thing, but that's not going to work for everybody, right? Equity is about giving people the tools they need to meet the moment, whether it be the political moment, whether it be a moment of your health, whether it be your financial moment, your family moment, whatever, the tools that you need to meet the moment to be live your best, live your best life, live your best, healthiest, most productive life.
A lot of times we let, like you said, it's been living with you, under your authority. I think a lot of times we deal with issues in society, and this is a little off the path, but we'll give that. I think a lot of times we deal with things and we submit to that, right?
Yeah,
we submit
absolutely.
to that, and we forget that we have an active role in our own success.
Absolutely.
Instead of waiting on something to happen, you could have been like, wow, I'm dealing with this. I don't know what to do, and I'm waiting on this thing to happen so I can get better. But to be proactive, shout out to proactive, but to be proactive, really, and say, you know what, this is what it is. Now I'm going to take whatever tools I can muster up and get together to meet the need I have. That is a powerful statement and a mindset. And I appreciate that because, coming into our office, there's never really like a great reason to call sometimes, because you're calling for maybe a screening, or maybe you're homeless. Maybe you're dealing with a substance misuse or abuse issue. Maybe you're hungry. I very seldom get the, hey, Kenny, how are you phone call. So when I get a call, somebody's in need of something. And that's not always a good time for them. It's not always a good time to hear somebody's hurt. But when we get done talking and when they realize that they don't have to be controlled by something, they actually have control of it, changes the whole perspective.
Absolutely. And I think it's about being engaged in your own life. We know that folks with HIV, and other health conditions, right? The more engaged you are in your own health care, the better health outcomes you're going to have, right? So it's about taking control of your life in that moment, and what do I need to do to stay healthy and live a long, productive life. And for HIV, that's getting in care, staying on your medications, and you're going to live. When I was first diagnosed, people thought that HIV would be a death sentence, right? You were
Yeah.
just buying your time. I remember pills were so hard, we'd have to take 20, 30 pills a day. You're taking pills for the side effects of the other pills, right?
Oh my gosh,
Now
yeah.
we take one pill once a day. I'm actually taking a shot called Cabenuva that I take every other month that controls my HIV.
Every other month.
Yeah,
Nice.
and I think, I never thought in my lifetime that we would be at a point where we could see the end of HIV, and I believe we are, right? I mean, it's not that there's a cure right now, but we have the tools that we need to end this epidemic right now. If everybody stopped, dropped, got tested, knew their status, gotten care on their medications, people that were at risk were starting to take PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, right? That pill that someone can take to reduce their chances of being exposed to HIV. We could end this epidemic today, right now, right?
So what I'm hearing is if we were proactive.
If we were proactive.
If we were proactive,
Absolutely.
no, and you know what? We'll talk more about being proactive and more about preparing. In a moment, we're going to cut to a quick commercial with some information you need to know. I will be right back with Brian Gooding.
HIV, a human immunodeficiency virus, is a virus that attacks the body's immune system. If left untreated, it can lead to AIDS, or acquired immunodeficiency syndrome 1. HIV is primarily spread through unprotected sexual contact, sharing needles, and from mother to child during pregnancy, childbirth, or breastfeeding. Social stigma and discrimination against people living with HIV remain a major challenge in many parts of the world. It's important to raise awareness about HIV and promote prevention, testing, and treatment. If you are sexually active, it is important to use protections such as condoms to reduce the risk of HIV transmission. Regular HIV testing is also recommended, especially if you have engaged in unprotected sex or shared needles. Remember, HIV is not a death sentence. With proper medical care, people living with HIV can lead long and healthy lives. Visit our website today to schedule a confidential test and take control of your sexual health. Remember, early detection saves lives. Take care and stay informed. Stay safe out there, guys.
We are back at the Community Pulse. Kenny Brown here, Brian Gooding. We're back. We left off talking about being proactive as far as health issues, concerns are. We were specifically talking about HIV care and exposure, but I actually think that what you've been saying, what you're saying, and what you represent in our community, and even right now for me, it's such a breakthrough moment. I don't know if you can tell, but it just means the world that the approach you have could save a life. And it's not just for people with HIV. It's not just for people with this. It's not a specific group. But what I hear you talking right now is really like life talk. I hear you talking about how to approach problems and problem solving. And I hope that people in PCS land can get this and understand that this type of rubric, this blueprint that we're talking about now, your perspective, your mindset, how you view certain things, could potentially change your outcome. We talked about equity, having the tools to meet the need. Tell us about those tools. We were talking about pre-exposure prophylaxis. We were talking about PrEP.
Yes. Yeah.
And because I gotta bring it back, but I don't want us to miss the moment. I don't want us to miss the moment because I honestly believe that not everybody who watches this is going to be positive or dealing with this issue.
Absolutely.
But everybody who's watching this can benefit from the blueprint of perspective, and that's what I think you're laying out for. So back to PrEP.
Absolutely. And I think that goes, whether you're dealing with HIV, diabetes, any other manageable, chronic manageable condition,
Yes.
right? It is about being proactive in your own health care, right? And taking charge. There's so often there has been that linear vision of medicine, right? Where the patient's at the bottom and you've got all these layers between you
Yes.
and the doctor who's the decision maker up here, right? And what we really, what serves people the best is that wraparound care, is client-centered care, is meeting people where they're at, where you're in the middle, all your team is around you, and you are helping forming that. And I believe Proactive does a really great job of this, and we'll talk a little bit more about that
Absolutely.
too, and the services that you folks provide, but really meeting people where they are at. You talked about it just a moment ago, right? And what do I need right here in that moment? Yeah, we may want to provide you with an HIV test or link you to care, but what is it you actually need, right? We so often in healthcare settings, we tend to traumatize or maybe even label, or we want so much when somebody comes to the door. You know, when's the last time you have sex? Have you smoked? Are you doing this? How many drinks have you had this week? All these questions that we're bombarding them with when we really should be asking them, you know, hey, I'm glad to see you. What can I do for you today? What do you need?
That you know what? I'm glad you said that. I was a flat-footed, easygoing client for one time. Right? Like I go to the doctor. I was taking a medication for high blood pressure. And I was taking for so long that I just kept getting a refill, never even checked anything. And I switched doctors because my doctor retired, and my new doctor was like, hey, want to run some tests? And I was like, hey, I'm good. I just got to have something to put on this card. My medication is just refill these. He said, well, do you know if you even need it?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I've been taking this for 10 years.
10 years. Think about that, right?
And he was like, when's the last time you were assessed? And I was like, what did you call me? He was like, no, when's the last? So this is serious. And I'm like, you know, I don't know. So I go in and get the blood panel, all this stuff done. Didn't need the medication. And I was like, oh, well, good. I've been spending money on something that I didn't need. And I worked in nonprofits my entire adult life. Spending money on something I didn't need, taking something I didn't need, and submitting to a you know how long it takes to get meds at a drive-thru? I'm on in the pharmacy, but your days are numbered. But so I'm sitting there wasting all of these resources. And when I realized that I had a choice in that, like, well, what if I don't want to take this?
Absolutely.
What if I don't need it any longer? What if it doesn't make me feel the way that it should? And that's change talk.
Yeah.
You know, that's that collaborative approach that we utilize here through intake, through assessment, through supportive needs analytics. We look at this data and say, well, what if you don't need that? Because I'm assuming if I see somebody, as an example, on the street, hey, maybe they're hungry.
Yep.
What if they just need $1? What if they just need to be listened to?
Yeah, let's address that first.
You know, we gotta meet the need of the individual before we push whatever our agenda is on someone. Absolutely. And I think I used to work in a system, not here at all, but I used to work in systems where we had a goal, right? And this is our goal. Our goal is to stop this from happening. And then we would realize that might not be this person's goal. No. And so, boom, harm reduction starts creeping up through the things of our society, and everybody's like, hey, for a higher chance of sustainability, let's give them tools to reduce the amount of harm associated with a certain type of behavior and put them in the driver's seat of their own lives. Now we're starting to see sustainability. Now we're starting to see progress. Now we're starting to say, hey, we can stop this epidemic of HIV if we give people the tools they need for the outcome that they decide they want.
Yep. Not only the tools are important, but the efficacy, the knowledge and the confidence to use those tools, right? So we can throw tools at anybody, but if you don't have the confidence and the ability to use those tools, they're useless. So we've really got to.
That is true. I can't
those tools got to come with messaging, right? And that messaging has got to be specific to that person, to that community. Not everybody's going to understand the same idea in the same way, right? So how many ways can we explain this to this person? And then you're right, again, about those needs, right? We are, as healthcare professionals or people that are working in those roles, we may have that goal, right, that we think, what we think, for how that person should be, act, behave, or the steps they need to take to get to where we think they should be, right? And that's really wrong. And then thinking about, for all you social workers out there, there's what we call, I don't know if you're the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
I've heard that.
That's that pyramid, right? The goal is to be the tippy top of that shining pyramid, right? But there's all those layers underneath, right? House care, health, jobs, all those different layers that may serve as barriers, structural, institutional barriers in order to get to where we want to be, right? So it is about backing it up again, person-centered, backing it up, meeting the community, that person where they're at, providing them with the knowledge and the confidence to use the tools that are that are available for them to live those healthy,
Absolutely.
productive lives.
And taking stock of that matters so much, right?
Mhm.
You talk about equality versus equity a little while ago in our first segment. That hits home. I talk to people. We do a fixed site outreach in some of our communities around here. We talk to people about what they need. More often than not, and this is my personal lived experience, we have resources. PCS has great resources. PHIC has a boatload of services, resources. We have a lot of stuff to offer community. Do you know what I get the most requests for? What? People just want me to listen.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm thinking, I said, you know what? You're in the line for a food pantry. So people are giving you a ticket, a number, you gotta stand here, do this, there's these rules associated with that. You're at the doctor's office, you're sitting there, you're waiting on yourself to be called. When we focus so much on the process, I think sometimes people get lost in the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take time to you put the client, like the participant, consumer, whatever the person is here,
Mm-hmm.
and you wrap that person and everything else, you can actually see them a little bit different.
Absolutely.
You know, and they want to be heard. I remember my mother passed away, and
I'm sorry to hear that.
gosh, she was awesome. Thank you. And she passed, and people say, "Hey, call me if you need something."
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, I don't know what I need. I don't know what could I possibly need to replace this figure.
Yeah.
What I needed was people to be available to listen. You know,
Absolutely.
and to be heard. And that's what I get a lot of when I'm out in community. People just want to be heard.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be considered, right? They want to be valued. And those are some of the intangible things outside of our service base and our service capacity that matter so much. That's why it's good that you come and have a talk, because now I can hear you.
Okay.
You can hear me. Like, there's this connection that happens through conversation, because PHIC, we can look it up. You can Google PCS.
Mhm.
You can see these services. You have a robust service package.
Yeah.
Lead this. We affect community. This is our job. But the thing that separates us from some of our contemporaries, the thing that I can see separates you all, which is why you're probably the lead, right, is your ability to understand people and listen to them.
Absolutely. And in that process,
Mhm.
you create a bridge. Right? You create a bridge between yourself and that other person.
Absolutely.
You also may create a bridge, if you're talking about substance use, you may create a bridge to treatment and recovery.
There it
You
is.
may
There
create
it
a
is.
bridge to testing and knowing your status.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so it does start with that listening and really being, not just listening, active listening, right?
Yeah.
Where you're reflecting that language back and you're checking for understanding.
If I didn't know any better, I think you were talking about motivational interviews. I would think he was talking about motivational interviewing if I didn't know any better.
It
But,
is, you know, those are some of the
absolutely.
techniques of motivational interviewing. But what I found,
Yeah.
in a lot of these things that I've learned over the years through my professional life,
Yes.
is they translate into your personal life too.
Very
Those are
much so.
really great tools. You know, if you're having a disagreement or conflict with your partner, right? So what I hear you saying is, right? So in that effort to understand that person in that moment and maybe come to a resolution, right? So these tools cut across HIV, they cut across healthcare, they cut across all kind of sectors, right? There's intersectionality.
And that's what I love about the type of conversation that we're able to have, because it applies to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't ostracize or put people on the outside of this thing. It doesn't place you on the side of the road. It puts you right here
Yep.
with us. And that's the common thread that I love, that's weaved into the work that you do, the work that I do, and the work that we do together.
Absolutely.
It's applicable to everyone. Because once you get that trust, once you listen, not to just respond, but to hear, there's different roles, co-occurrence. You might talk about substance misuse. You might talk about childhood trauma. You might talk about the PTSD from this. You might get so much more, and you do, once you reflectively and actively listen to somebody.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, and then, you know, backing up to our professional work, you know, what I do right now is I work with 16 different organizations, Proactive Community Services.
16.
16.
Okay.
So we or this last year, we're just starting a new grant year this year. I think we've down to 15 this year, but really working with those organizations that then go out into their communities to provide a range of services. It's an HIV grant, so our main focus is getting people tested for HIV and knowing their status, and then linking them to care if they come up positive, or linking them to PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, if they are at high risk, right? Maybe we're not so good at their condom use, so we're going to recommend them for PrEP. We also do STI testing, viral hepatitis testing. We do behavioral interventions, right? Those group interventions to help people maybe have better condom negotiation skills, right? And how to talk about sex and talk to your partner about those things. We also fund some of our agencies to do surveillance services. So those agencies are tasked by the state to reach out to folks that may not be aware of their status, or they see that they have possibly dropped out of care, to reach out to those folks and engage them back into care. Because what we do know about HIV right now, it is a chronic manageable disease. If you get in care on your medications, you are going to live a long, healthy, productive, even sexually active life, right? There's a strategy called U equals U. Undetectable means untransmittable, meaning if you're on your medications, you've achieved what we call an undetectable viral load, that you can no longer pass that virus on to others.
I never would have thought that was possible. I remember even movies and commercials and the television, all this focus about the death sentence that was HIV. And so to hear this now, even working in the field, to hear it now, it brings a sense of joy that people are able to live lives and that hope is available now too.
Absolutely. You know, in the state of Illinois, the work that we do with RIG and that Proactive does in the community, it's a essential part of Illinois' Getting to Zero plan. I'm not sure if everybody's heard of that plan or not, but Getting to Zero is a plan that the state of Illinois has come up with to get to zero new infections, HIV infections, by the year 2030. That's not that far off.
Do you think that's possible?
You know, I hope that it's possible, right? I think there's still a lot of barriers that we are facing in order to reach that goal. But you know, but we can get there, and it is about the way we get there is that we get as many people tested as we can.
Yes.
So they know their status, they get on that medication, right? And then in that process, we're identifying people that may be at higher risks for HIV, and we're making sure they have access to PrEP. So the maths, it's a mathematical problem, a science problem, but if there's I think it's a 20% uptick in each of those kind of strategies, eventually they will come together. And it's not that it's not a cure, it's not that we'll end the virus, but there'll be so little virus left that the epidemic can no longer support itself.
Wow.
So that's the goal. And it's also in line, we have a national strategy of into the epidemic too. Yeah, so the work that Proactive is doing in the community and the other organizations that I'm humbled to work with is really an essential part of that. And I was just running the numbers yesterday for kind of a year-end report. In the last year, the grant year, our funded agencies, they provided over 1,700 rapid HIV tests. They provided about 9,000 routine screenings in clinical settings. We identified 27 new positives who were all linked to care within 30 days. All of them linked to care on medication within 30 days. We provided over 600 STI viral hepatitis tests with 22 new positives. We did.
So I'm looking to see if he's reading off of something because the numbers are just rolling. You're just rolling right now.
It's funny because I just ran reports and wrote a little narrative yesterday, so it's fresh.
I was looking at the one with your hand. I was like,
no, it's fresh in my mind because I was just writing my report for a blurb in our newsletter, right?
No,
so and then we linked 259 people to PrEP. So, and that's the work, and I will give a wonderful plug here for Proactive. Okay, because, you know, the work that Proactive does in the community is impactful, right? And they're Proactive is one of our strongest partners. They've always been a strong partner in here in the Southern Cook County. You've got a long history of engaging with the community.
Yeah.
You know, I think I love the origin story, right?
Oh my gosh.
Your executive director, her brother, was it her brother that was affected by HIV, and
Yeah.
she saw a need in the community and started as a grassroots organization, and here you are.
We will turn 20 in February.
Okay, in
you
this
know,
wonderful building providing all these services, not only working with me and in HIV prevention, but you folks have got a medical clinic, you've got Ryan White Care, you've got all these stuff that is really, yeah, it's really wonderful.
But this is exactly what we talked about a little while ago. Once you listen to the needs of community, the needs of people, there's different avenues and different places that you can take it. Speaking of avenues and places, we are going to take a quick avenue break, and we're going to come back, and I'm going to ask a few lighter questions.
All right, great.
We will see you. We'll take a quick break and give you some proactive information that you need to know about.
Thank you.
We are back. Kenny Brown, Brian Gooding, we are back. So we've been talking about a lot of things. We've used a lot of words that start with E. We've talked about equity, equality, efficacy, energy. We've talked about a lot of words that start with P. Proactivity and PHIMC, and we've discussed some stuff. I have the benefit and the pleasure of having met you before this started, having worked with people who brag about you nonstop. No, seriously.
None of it true. None of it true.
No, so we had a meeting. I must tell it. We had a meeting, and I just kind of started here, and they said Brian is coming, and so there was like a hush that washed over the staff meeting, and I was like, so I'm like,
I hope it was a good hush.
no, it was like, who is this Brian, and what will they bring here? So I asked that question. I said, well, hey, who's Brian? I was like, who's Brian? So once they explained the connection and what you did and who you are just as a person, I was excited to meet you and to share the story of some of the things at PCS that we do and to begin to build that bridge between us. But now we got to know what's going on. There's a few things that I think the people in PCS land want to know that I may want to also know.
All right.
Because we do some heavy lifting. We deal with a lot of heavy stuff.
Absolutely.
So you guys can't see our legs. We both have legs right now. What is it? No. So during COVID-19, I used to always joke when I saw people in person, like, you have a body.
Yes. Or you're taller than I
right.
thought you would be. Or you're
People thought I was like 5'10". I'm 6'5". But no. So who is your favorite designer? Because they can see that Brian is very impeccably dressed. and so who's your favorite designer?
Well, I don't know if I have a favorite designer. When I was younger, I used to be a lot bigger of a clothes horse. I would say now that I'm more of a perfume. I tend to. That's where I spend my money now. I don't really spend it that much on clothes. I spend redonkulous amounts on a perfume that I may like.
So what's your favorite scent at the moment? Because I know that's definitely got to change.
Yeah. One of my favorite scents, and it's ridiculously expensive, is Baccarat Rouge 560. It's made by. And it's really expensive, and it's really.
I don't even know what that is. So okay. I'm gonna Google it. When we're done Googling now.
Google it. Yeah. It's really
okay.
great. It's the most. I think probably my most complimented scent. I like anything Comme de Gusson, the old Comme de Gusson, the incense series. I like that.
I'm learning.
Okay. But yeah, so clothes, not so much anymore.
Okay.
But
It's about the scents.
it's about the scent, right?
Okay. Favorite restaurant?
Favorite restaurant.
If you could go one place and like, Brian, all expenses paid, we're going to this restaurant, what would you pick?
Gosh, I'm a really, really good cook.
That was my next question.
Yeah,
We'll get to it.
I'm a
We'll get
really,
to it.
really good cook. So for restaurant, I think I love a good tapas restaurant.
Yes.
Definitely
Absolutely.
a good tapas restaurant. We were actually in Spain last year, and that was really wonderful to have tapas.
The we is not my. I got cheated out of vacation. He was like, we. I was like, we were. And what did we do? We went to Bacalao, and he taught us no. So you were in Spain.
Yeah, I was in Spain
without me last year. And,
yeah. So I love a good barbecue place. I'll give a pitch to Station House Barbecue in Plainfield, Illinois.
Station House barbecue.
Station House. Out of the world. They got really good.
So Tony's off camera. Wait. I barbecue like almost every 15 minutes. Tony bought a grill, and the whole day was about the grill. So Tony runs our production studio, MJG Studios, our podcast, our interview, anything media. Tony was so focused on the grill the whole day, everything was about the grill. He'd be like, hey, what we got going on Thursday? He's like, I gotta put this grill together.
Yeah, but
And so Station House, Tony, be out there. Station House Barbecue in Plainfield.
in Plainfield, yeah.
All right.
And I love all sorts of food, all sorts of cuisines. So it's hard to choose a favorite restaurant because what am I eating? German food? Am I eating Thai food? Am I eating? What am I eating that day?
Okay.
I love food, and I'll eat. I'll put just about anything in my mouth.
You might just be one of my new favorite people now with this barbecue is life. What do you cook? Well, you said you cook well. What's your best dish? If you were to bring Tony and I some food, let's say next week sometime, maybe on a Tuesday or Thursday around 1:30, what would you bring for Tony and I next week around 1:30 when you called us and said you were on the way with the food that you were going to bring us?
Oh, what's really good right now that people love, I make a braised pork belly, Asian braised pork belly, and I make homemade bao buns. So there's a pork belly with bao buns. I make a little daikon radish that goes in there, and jalapenos, pickled jalapenos. It's really, really delicious.
Tony and I support this message. Tony and I fine, we'll try it.
But I love to cook, and I love to experiment in cooking and in all sorts of different cuisines. So
okay, so when you're not saving the world, I know you said cooking. What else do you like to do? Like, what's a hobby for Brian?
What's a hobby for Brian? I'm trying to get back into that. COVID really put a lot of damper on people. You had a couple of years that we were all very sedentary, right?
Yes.
And trying to get back out there and do things. I would like to ride my bike more. I'm ashamed to say that I'm a little lax there. I love reading.
Okay.
I love to read. I'm a big science fiction and fantasy freak.
Yeah,
That's my kind of go-to, or classical literature. That's kind of my go-to when I like to read. And just spending time with family, spending time with my partner. Those are all pretty good things.
Okay.
Quality
time matters.
Yeah, we like traveling. I like to travel and do that kind of stuff too. So,
how long you guys been together?
So we've been together almost 10 years now. So it'll be 10 years coming December. I think.
So this year?
Yeah, this year will be 10 years.
So what do you do for a 10-year celebration of? Wow.
Oh, I don't know.
The pressure is on.
I don't know yet.
The pressure is on.
I don't know yet. The pressure is on.
You got to come back in January next year and tell us if it's 11 years, because that determines that.
Well, I think we're hoping to do some more travel this year.
Absolutely.
Get out. When I was younger, I did a lot of travel. Then, because it's funny when you're young, you're like, okay, you just do it, right? I used to I would book the ticket and worry about how it was all going to work out later, right? And as you get older, you're like, oh my God, I got bills to pay, I got this, that. You don't do that anymore. You don't take that leap, right? And I haven't traveled. Well, I haven't traveled internationally in several years. So last year was the first time that I had done that in probably about almost 15 years.
Wow.
You know, and I traveled extensively before that, and my partner had never been out of the country. So that's my goal, is to really take those leaps. I ain't getting any younger or prettier.
Create more. But you'll smell better.
Okay, but I'll still smell good, and I'll be well traveled.
There you go. So I want to thank you, Brian, PHMC, for the collaboration and the work that we do together. It is a joy. As you can see, we love them so much. It's a very easy task. Thanks for coming to our community pulse. We've taken the pulse of the community, and we're going to take action. He's going to take action and bring me and Tony some braised Asian pork belly, homemade bao buns. But no, seriously, thank you for kicking it with us today. Don't forget, people in PCS land, to always be proactive.
Absolutely.
We will see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.